Matt.
Good morning, Wayne.
You got the business bug pretty early, didn't you?
Sure did. Yeah, certainly growing up in Summerside, my two older brothers had paper routes, and they brought me in as a subcontractor for them. And it wasn't too long till I figured out that when they were doing collection day, they were making a lot more money than I was piecemeal. And so it wasn't long after that I had my own paper route, and for most of the next probably 10 years, the paper route, especially during the winter months, was one of my pursuits. The summer months we spent at Marco Polo Land in Cavendish, so I had to give up the paper route during the best months of the year. And I got to do all the snow and slush carries for sure.
How old were you back then? I mean,
it would be 5 and 6 years old that I started working under my brothers, but then certainly at least by 8 I had my own route and had to do your own collections and take the money down every week to the Journal Pioneer office and manage your cash flow, pay your bill, and then a little bit left over, and had a bank account at the Bank of Montreal because it was open on Saturdays back then, the only one, and I was able to put the remainder into the bank account and didn't really spend much of that until 15 or 16, and a lot of that turned into the money that was our down payment on Magic Mountain at age 19.
Wow. At age 9, you moved into the amusement park business, did you?
Well, no, 9, it was age 11 when Sandspit was my first shift, I guess. So my older brother Peter was a supervisor at the Sandspit, and mid-August in 1990, they had I guess a purge of employees. There was about 13 people that were let go mid-season due to some problems, and my brother came home and told my parents that he figured he'd have to take me to work the next morning to get things open. And they agreed that as long as I was under supervision and everything else that I could go. So the next day I was off to Sandspit to work in the mini golf hut.
The mini golf, but among other ventures there at Sandspit, what did you do?
Yeah, the mini golf was the first day. The next day I was on the carousel, and by the third day I was working the cash register in the ticket booth. And that's when the potential of business period became more apparent to me. Now everybody always comes in on the busy days and sees all the money coming in, but certainly that was my first taste of it as well.
Mm-hmm. How big an influence did Larry Linville, the previous owner of Sandspit, have on you as a young teenage worker?
Yeah, certainly Larry from the very start, and his wife Beverly, they were involved in the business. They were there. And he proclaims himself as the preacher because he is constantly talking about his philosophies on business. And certainly at Sandspit, a lot of it is built on having a park that people want to come back to without being able to pick any particular reason. It's not just the biggest and best rides. It's about having a good time as a family and having a safe and clean environment for that. And so, you see the owner walking out to his own vehicle. He's picking up garbage. He's looking to make sure everybody else is doing it. The simple lessons of keeping everything simple. We're a park that employs kids, and you got to keep it darn simple to be able to keep systems in place. And his own background as a partner in a Burger King franchise, and that we had systems on food control. We had systems on cash control, we had employee manuals and uniforms and expectations, and all of those things continue to be the foundation of our businesses today.
So it sounds like he had an enormous influence on you.
Yeah, certainly both myself and my other brothers, we learned a lot in business from him. We learned a lot from our grandfather and my father as well, but the lessons of business and cash flow and giving yourself the flexibility in the future and not overextending and not always trying to be biggest and best, but to be the best at what you're doing. He was an influence from very early on in my time at Sandspit, and even today, this week I'm still talking with him on different matters, and he's no longer actively involved in the businesses, but he comes by to visit lots.
So it sounds to me like you really enjoyed yourself as a young person there.
I was excited to go to my first day of work when I was 11, and 25 years later I'm still excited to go every day, and that's how I know it's what's right for me.
Now, if you loved the amusement business so much back then as a teenager, and you were so immersed in it,
yep,
and learning so much day after day, why did you make the choice to go into law? Because it sounds like such a huge departure.
Yeah, well, certainly in my family, again, starting with my grandparents, education was always very important, and the amusement parks were very seasonal at that time, and even the way Mr. Dunville ran them, he primarily traveled all winter, and he was, active in the businesses from May until October. But for the students and for the managers working there, the winters were there, and that gave us the opportunity to work really hard in the summers, earn a very good living, and be able to afford whatever education we wanted it. And I took advantage of that because if I knew then I was going to end up owning all the parks, I would have even, placed a bigger importance on education. I use my education every day. My economics degree and behavior, some business management that I picked up, but, particularly the law degree. Just because you have a law degree doesn't mean you have to be a lawyer. And, there's a lot of my classmates that have switched careers, not any in the amusement park business. But, I use it every day. I use whether it's, negotiation, you have to know what leverage you have, and that knows what, you have to know what rights you have when you go in. And with dealing with contractors, dealing with suppliers, dealing with staff, there's HR issues, everything comes back to law. So I'll never regret going to law school, but I may have regretted if I stayed as a lawyer longer.
Did you stay connected to Sandspit even while you were studying through university?
Yeah, certainly throughout university, I was coming home to work. It got complicated in 1999 because we bought Magic Mountain. So that summer, we purchased Magic Mountain. Actually, the deal closed June 14th. We opened June 15th. So the previous ownership had gotten everything ready, but the whole deal came up in April, so we didn't have a Sandspit management team in place. We had Sandspit Parley Beach at the time, and we had Magic Mountain. So for that first summer, I was circulating between all three parks, getting a team in place at each one, and my father was retiring from school teaching, and he was going to come work at Magic Mountain as well. When as the summer goes on, I start focusing more on Magic Mountain because that was the new one, that was the bigger one. And for most of the next 3 years, I was at Magic Mountain quite a bit, Sandspit less, but always, I've had a paycheck from Sandspit every year since 1991.
Well, here you were pursuing a law degree. When were you actually called to the bar, Matt?
I was called to the bar May 20th, 2005.
And who did you work with, and what kind of work were you involved in?
Yes, well, I started, my summer work was in 2004, and I was assigned to John Mitchell, who's now at the Court of Appeal, and at Stuart McKelvey Sterling Scales in Charlottetown. And working under him, I certainly got to work on litigation and criminal law. My primary interest was on commercial law, and so Ron Keefe and Scott McKenzie and Eugene Rossiter were helping with files as well. So I got to work with some really great people and some great experiences, and people that I still have contact with to this day.
How long did you stay at law?
My last day was May 20th, 2005 when I was called to the bar. Prior to that, in February, I had accepted a job with a Vancouver law firm as a tax associate, and plans were underway to move to Vancouver at the completion of my, once I passed the bar on PEI, which again, the earliest possible day was May 20th. In the meantime, some other things came up.
How could a young man from the North Shore, who steeped in the amusement park business in the heart of family fun on Prince Edward Island, choose to go all the way across the country to Vancouver to continue his law career?
Well, I had studied school law at the University of Toronto and had lived in London, England before that, and Acadia University, so I had some pretty diverse experiences up till then. At the end of, when I was going through law school and finishing up, my primary area of interest was tax law. A lot of people find it boring, it's complex, it's hard. That's the challenge that I saw in it. Also, it was already applicable to my business, the activities that I had going on the side. The tax is a very specialized profession. Prince Edward Island did not. A lot of the tax work is done by accountants on PEI and tax planning, lawyers not so much, and so I was having trouble getting the experience that I wanted in that. I did have a relationship with a friend from law school that was based in Vancouver as well. Sandspit, Larry figured he needed at least another 5 years before he was ready to sell. The Rainbow Valley was a property we had been looking at, but there hadn't been any contact for a couple years. Two of my brothers were running Magic Mountain. My business partner was running Burlington Amusement Park. And so I was it was the right time. I didn't have a home or anything like that. If I wanted to spend 5 years in Vancouver, learn a lot of tax, come back home, the business opportunities, professional opportunities may still be there. Olympics were coming in 2010, so the plan was kind of stay till after the Olympics and come home.
So what happened then? Where was the pivot point here that turned a promising career as a taxation lawyer into one of an amusement park entrepreneur?
Yeah, in February of 2005, I had accepted the job in Vancouver, and almost immediately after, we were contacted by a Charlottetown accountant about a business opportunity. And that's when the first seeds of doubt were started to be planted, because I was sitting there thinking, will I stay for this, or am I going to Vancouver? You know, I've got a lot on the line here. And that one didn't pan out. So I went over to Halifax and was doing my bar course, and in early April, I got a phone call from Larry Dunville saying, you know, are you sitting down? And you know, my mind immediately went to the worst. Is he sick? Is his wife sick? Is something happened to the parks? Was there a fire? I don't know. And he said, you know, Rainbow Valley closed, or Rainbow Valley sold. And I was very frustrated because we had been trying and didn't get anywhere. And he said, well, you haven't let me finish. And I said, well, no, I didn't let you finish. He said, and it's closing. And I said, well, that makes no sense at all. And, you know, some people would still argue it made no sense at all, the decisions that were made at that time with Parks Canada and others. And I kind of, you know, said, okay, I got to, you know, I went for a walk around Halifax and called him back later, and immediately we were already lining up what pieces of land would be available in Cavendish, what people would we need to be talking to make something like this happen, and, you know, exchanging by fax sketches and drawings. And then when I returned home to PEI after my bar course, I mean, long nights with Larry drawing things out and meeting with the appropriate people. And, you know, that's when things started to really change. So I had to go back and finish a few weeks out at the law firm till May 20th. But we were in full steam ahead trying to build this park, but with no guarantees anything was going to happen.
I'm wondering what kind of personal considerations, financial considerations you had to make to come to that big decision?
Yeah, certainly short-term financial, it wasn't a very, it wasn't based on that by any doubt. You know, Vancouver was waiting, it was September 1st I was supposed to go out there. It was a very good position, a very attractive salary package, and it was, you know, wearing suits, skyscrapers, car dealerships are calling you, you know, you're looking at condos, you're doing all that. It's just like on TV, you know, it was pretty good. Talking with my partners and whatever else, we kind of set a very, you know, we set a wage at about 1/4 of what my Vancouver wage was going to be. And I was unattached, I had no family, I had no bills outside of 7 years worth of some student loans left over that my salary at the time didn't cover. But I had the flexibility that, you know, I could live this way for a while. And, you know, from May 20th until October 14th when we broke ground, there was no guarantee anything was going to happen. But in the meantime, I had said no to Vancouver to stay on PEI. So that's really hard to put that back together, both personally and professionally. In February, I had already told, you know, the leading firm in Charlottetown that they weren't my first choice. So, you know, it's not that I burned bridges, but there was probably some feelings hurt, and just they want people that are fully committed, and I understand that. And so I had a lot riding on making sure that those first shovels went in the ground in the middle of October, but it was a long haul from the middle of April until middle of October, and then we still had to get a park built in 8 months, 36 acres, which had never been done before.
I've got to ask you, were you scared?
I think I was too busy to be scared. I mean, the financial stuff and that at the time, you know, I'll figure it out. I guess in my head it was, if everything blows up, you know, I'm 25, if I go bankrupt, so be it. And I'll always have a law degree, and it might not be Vancouver, and it might not be in Charlottetown, but surely I can find somewhere that'll take me. But you got to try this once. And from October 14th, I mean, we're going full out, and we made, you know, really good progress before Christmas. And then, you know, we figured weather's coming. We're probably not going to get much done. We're going to spend the winter ramping up to get a big crew on in the spring, because I've told everyone I'm going to be open July 1st, and I don't miss deadlines, so I'm going to get there. But we had a winter, and my mother and father still marvel to this day, you know, whether somebody was looking over us or what it was. I think we had one day where we had guys that had to shovel snow. Otherwise, you know, the winter of 2005, 2006, there was no snow. There was, you know, very decent temperatures. We had to heat the ground and we had to heat the concrete and build shelters over structures as we were building them. But we actually worked right through the winter and probably hit peak employment in March, April, and actually started slowing down a bit before July.
You could have been in a high-rise condo in Vancouver, in your three-piece suit, getting ready to go to the office. Instead, where was Matt Jelley?
Matt Jelley was living in a 160-year-old farmhouse on a construction site in Cavendish. You know, dust everywhere. The house had been renovated a little bit. I had, you know, basically a dorm room style bedroom, and there was no shower or anything yet. I had an old pink tub, and I sit down at 5 o'clock every morning in this ice cold tub and drizzle a little bit of water over my head, and then I'd go out and work for the whole day. And at 6 a.m. I had to be up and out to fuel the heaters, especially in the middle of the winter, before everybody got there. And then at night I had to fuel them at 6, go in, have a little nap, and then be back out at midnight. They needed to be done every 6 hours, and I was the guy on site. In the middle of all that, after the construction guys would leave the site, I'd be drawing up what we're doing the next day. I mean, there is no master plan for Shining Waters. The water slides are engineered, you know, the tower in that area are engineered. The rides are all engineered separately, but the walkways, the plumbing, the restaurant buildings, everything else were hand drafted. So,
did you have any regrets at that point?
No, I have no regrets at all. Period. You know, people talk about that and they ask about that. I've had second thoughts, but second thoughts are different than regrets. So, you know, the first couple years and even during that construction, as you say, this is the life I choose, and should I be somewhere else? You'd think about it, and then you'd be like, no, this is where I want it to be. It's not like anybody forced me to do it. And then your first, second, and third year, when your business results, you know, you might get a week of rain or whatever else, and that's really stressful. And there are times when payroll's in question and you're not the one getting paid. You're making sure everybody else is getting paid. And do you think how nice it would be just to show up every Thursday and get your paycheck? Oh yeah. Do I regret that, you know, I have that responsibility? Not a bit.
If you hadn't had the background at Sandspit, if you hadn't had the tutoring of Larry, do you think you could have gotten through all that?
Well, I think it's more than just the tutoring. It's that throughout this whole time, my business partners, who were my brothers, my parents, and Larry, they never wavered in their support for me. You know, when there was time when changes had to be made or whatever, they were there to back me up. They weren't second guessing anything that was happening. And so I think, you know, obviously if there had been conflict or challenges or lack of trust at that time, they probably wouldn't have invested in me in the first place, but it would have made it a lot more challenging. But yeah, the solid background, the vision that we had already done this before. We had other successful parks. I mean, at this time, Magic Mountain was doing well, Sandspit was doing well. You know, Burlington was turning the corners as well. So, you know, having all that background certainly helped. But yes, the support, and as I say, it's more than just Larry, it's the entire family. You know, we were all working in the same direction and making the park the success it is now.
Matt, when a lot of people think of a business, they think of a final end product, some kind of widget, something you can hold in your hand, something you can use, something you need. But your product, that's not your product. Your product is family fun times.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, what kind of a challenge is that?
Well, I guess we always say that we are very fortunate to be in the business we are in because people choose to come to us. Nobody needs to come to an amusement park. They're voluntarily coming. They're choosing to spend their money with you. So the analogy we always use is a transmission shop. If you work at a transmission shop, it's really hard to make people happy because they never knew they needed it. It's going to cost more money than what they ever expected. It's going to take longer, and it's for something they didn't think they needed 2 days ago before their car broke down. And it's very hard to beat expectations in that business. In our business, people come in looking to have a good time. We have to maintain that. We can build on that. But when they're not having a good time, it's probably because we've failed. And that makes it easy to motivate our employees. Like, we're going to get out there. People are choosing, this is their day of the summer where they've been Shining Water, Sandspit's on the calendar. They're coming to spend the day with us. And so that makes it so much easier for us to produce our goods. So yes, it's not tangible, it's hard to feel. We're building memories in people's minds. We're building annual traditions. Hopefully they're coming more than once a year, but at least we're making sure we're getting the 1-year trip. School trips, everything else. I mean, the best days are the days when at the end of the day you see kids lining up to take the map of the park home with them. Not when they're coming in. They may have, but they need a new fresh one to take home to relive it, to post on their wall, to go over to, school days, to take it home to their parents or their brothers and sisters to show them the day. And that's what we want to see, is the smiles on kids' faces at the end of the day. That's how we know. So when I'm not stuck under a machine making sure the maintenance procedures are being followed, or when I'm not, in a meeting with management and trying to get staff going, if I can, at the end of the day, I want to be out in the park walking around and talking to people and seeing what's going on.
You want to see them get that second map.
Yeah, you definitely want to see them get the second map, and while they're there, get one for one of our other parks, hopefully too. But for us, the fact that they want to keep taking a piece of the park home with them to relive it is what's important, and that's what builds traditions. And that's one thing that couldn't happen in our first year or our second year or our third year. That takes time to build that loyalty and that tradition.
Is your business more reliant on the weather than even that of a farming enterprise?
I think so. Certainly on a day-to-day basis. At the end of the season, certainly, again, the steady hand of Larry on this one is, don't fuss the weather. And in Sandspit, that's particularly true. On a cool day or an overcast day, you can put on a jacket, you can go on the rides. And a day at Sandspit, some would say it's better than on a beaming, hot, sunny day. At Shining Waters, we can have anywhere from 30 guests to 3,000, depending on the weather. So when you talk with somebody at a fast food restaurant and they talk about Fridays having a 10% boost in business, or Mondays are a little slow, or storm days or hockey tournaments, but you predict all those things. For us, we wake up and based on the weather, we have to be prepared. At 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, we start making decisions. Is it going to be a 30-person day, 300, or up to 3,000? And so our variability from day to day is huge in magnitude.
You must know the summer weather trends on Prince Edward Island, the North Shore, better than Boomer Gallant.
I would say that there's not too much to know more than Boomer about the weather, but no, look, our business results, we have them going back from the very start. And you can look at them and I can tell you the weather without looking at the day report. We do track the weather on every day. But if you give me the sales numbers, or if you give me the day, I can tell you what the sales numbers should be without the weather. But we watch that. We watch the calendar dates. I mean, we know when Canada Day falls on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Friday versus when it falls on a Wednesday. We know when August 1st weekend is when it is. We know when Labor Day falls, like it did last year, September 7th, versus this year when it'll happen or the other way around. It happened September 1st this year. It'll be September 7th coming up. So the calendar, the weather are huge impacts on our business, and I have zero control over them.
How many days have you got?
80.
How big's that window?
80 days from Father's Day Saturday to Labor Day every year, without a doubt. Doesn't matter. Father's Day, Labor Day are always 80 days apart.
You know how many sunny days you need to keep that water park busy?
Well, I'd like 80. I'd take 50, and some years we have to make do with 40.
Matt, at what point in all of this the realization came to you that, look, this is a successful venture. It's working.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, I'm not sure you ever get to that point. You have to keep working. And, Sandspit is now entering its 32nd season. And we're in the middle of a major capital expansion and upgrade. And it's not always new rides. It's fixing what we have. Rainbow Valley, when it's closed, was 36. But some people would say it showed. No one's going to say that about Sandspit when it's 36. And that's, part of my goal. For Shining Waters, we're going to be opening for our 10th season this year. We have 2 major projects ongoing, plus a new one for 2016 that we're already working on. And we're going to keep working, continuing to grow. We're changing a lot of the different things within the park, adding new amenities. As far as knowing, okay, we've got a solid business and solid financing and that, at Shining Waters, it probably took us the first 6 years to get to there. And, that's just the reality of a new business. On PEI, Rainbow Valley had the ability to grow over 30 years, adding new things into a large site. Sandspit started as dune buggies and bumper boats in 1984. The dune buggies were gone in 85, and then every year since it's been gradual growth. With Shining Waters, we went boom, 36 acres in 8 months. And so financially, there's a cost to that. Just absorption into the market, there's a cost to that. And so all of that took time. And the first couple of years, it was pretty touchy, and we needed support of family and our funding partners and everything else.
How do you personally ensure that your enterprises are successful?
I'm the first one there and the last one to leave, and I probably get criticized that a bit, that I probably should take a bit more time off. For us, in that 80 days to maintain the margins that we need to maintain to afford the facilities we have, we got to watch every dollar. We have to be on top of things. And, I have to make sure the policies are being followed, managers are being trained. And we've got great people that work for us. But if I'm not there working, I'm not trying hard enough. And I owe the responsibility to my staff and to my community, to which we employ people and we pay taxes, that if there's a chance for us to grow, if there's a chance to make our business better, I have to do it.
Is there any facet of your businesses in the course of the summer and the season that you don't put a hand to?
No. I work a cash register for more than one shift a year, just because every year I have to be able to look at a customer and ask for the admission fee. And I have to see the reaction, and I have to know their questions. I answer the phones after 5 o'clock. Customer questions about accommodations, activities in the area, our pricing procedures, coolers, lost and founds, all of those things I get a read on. Customer inquiries come to my email account, and I'll respond in under an hour. And it doesn't really matter, other than the middle of the night, you're going to get a response.
Even if the sewage system needs fixing?
Even if the sewage system needs fixing, I will be there, and it might not be my arm down into the tank, but sometimes it has to be. But I've got some good maintenance guys and business partners that work with us as well. I clean bathrooms, because sometimes there's messes that you can't get anyone else to go near. I've certainly fueled go-karts, and I have construction and demolition and everything else. And so there are days when you're with the bank or you're with a law office, but I wear work boots every day. I wore work boots here today. I'll wear work boots tomorrow. I've worn work boots every day for the last 10 years. So you're always ready to get to work.
Matt, others might view your businesses as seasonal ventures.
Yeah.
Sunny summer weather, make your money, then go relax. I
Yep.
bet you don't see it that way.
Now, certainly, there was a time when it was like that. And when Sandspit was the standalone, the single park, the Dunvilles ran it in that manner, and they were very successful doing that. The market has changed. The industry's changed. And with me involved, the marketing and the visibility of the business has become a year-round thing. But the maintenance of it is as well. So we have a full-time maintenance person now year-round, which has been since we bought Sandspit in 2008. The major project we're working on right now is a new year-round maintenance facility. So our buildings and that have been more seasonal. We're building a new large indoor facility where we'll be able to overhaul a ride completely indoors, heated all season. That's going to allow us to expand employment opportunities, but it also means that I really can't ever get away.
As a grandfather, looking forward to a summer of fun on the North Shore, are there any of the rides from Crystal Palace going to be on this island?
Well, certainly there's a few of the projects underway. So the Crazy Submarine is going to be installed at Shining Waters this summer. We're hoping to have a major announcement of one of the larger attractions from Crystal Palace coming to PEI for 2016. Also this summer we're opening an arcade at the Sunset Boardwalk with a lot of the equipment from Crystal Palace, and the mobile climbing wall will be at Sunset Boardwalk as well. So we're implementing a lot of it here. We are looking at a new property and a new park in Moncton as well with a lot of the equipment, but there's still a lot of decisions to be made.
Matt, over the years, it seems to me you've certainly broadened your focus, from ensuring that your own businesses are succeeding to that of the overall promotion of the island's tourism industry, especially the Cavendish area, the North Shore. Can you tell us a little bit about how that transformation took place, or was it always part of your agenda?
No, I think certainly when you work in the law firm, they always say, I think for me, it was in my nature to do such things, and I think a little bit, you know, when we started and it was Shining Waters, you know, we got the park built, and then, you know, the winters, although I'm working every day, I may not have been working full days every day, and so there's always people, and Larry warned me about this, who will jump up to take some of your time. So, you know, I got involved very early on with the Cavendish Tourism Association, and, you know, they recognized, here's a young guy, not a lot of dependents or anything else. Let's give him as much as he could. And, you know, at that time, oh, we'd like to nominate you to be president. Well, sure, that sounds great. And next thing I know, for 7 years, I'm the chair and president of the Tourism Cavendish group. And you know what? It opened a lot of doors and it created a lot of opportunities for me. And then once you volunteer once, TIPI calls, Tourism Advisory Council calls, maybe the Chamber of Commerce calls, Planning Board, SOAR Utility. And, you know, at some points, well, what's another meeting? You might as well do it. And I was enjoying it. I got to learn a lot of different, you know, different aspects of the industry and meet people. And I'm not politically involved. So by volunteering in those organizations, it does open some of those doors, you know, in the more conventional ways where you're in a leadership position and you have the ability to help mobilize, you know, whether it's an elected official's priorities or you get to help verbalize your own to them. And so instead of, you know, joining a particular party or becoming my riding association and maybe having some good years and some lean years, I chose to get involved more on the public sector side with the volunteer organizations. And, you know, after 7 years at the head of the Cavendish Group, I felt like I had, you know, more than fulfilled what should have been expected of me, and decided to step back a little bit and pass that on and try to get out of the way a bit to let the organization keep going. And then a year and a bit later, I end up being elected chair of the municipality itself. So that wasn't really in the plan when it all started, but once you're into those things, it's hard to stay out.
And at the same time, you've become a mentor to a lot of the young employees who work in your parks. Yeah,
certainly. That certainly comes from the influence of the Dunvilles and how they took my brothers and I along and mentored us and gave us some opportunities. But they also, you know, made it clear that, you know, the job's here as long as you want it. You're young. We're going to give you more responsibility than anyone else. We're going to pay you a fair wage. And I've been very mindful with my staff to do the same. So when people come with us and if they want to stick with us through university and college and they're, you know, at the level to join management, we're going to take good care of them. We're going to give them tremendous opportunity to run shifts of 15, 20, or 30 staff, to train them, to do cash management, to help in budgeting, to you know, make decisions and changes in the parks and do the hiring and whatever else. And sometimes they make mistakes and sometimes they do great things, and either way I'm going to be there to back them up because I have to give them that ability and give them a bit of a leash to go and make their own mistakes and learn from them. And you know, we've had a great group of young people, and you know, the challenge with that is that after 4 or 5 years they've moved on to something else, but we pride ourselves on having the next person up ready to go. And so people that have come through our management are in the RCMP, they're school teachers, school principals, accounting firms. There's been a bit of a rash of lawyers come through since my time in law school. They're actually still practicing, so good for them. But I think they miss the amusement park business too.
Now, your commitment runs pretty deep in this area, I know, because there's not too many people I know under the age of 40 who have a scholarship named after them. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Well, that comes from my time at Tourism Cavendish. It's something that I'd always believed in, and as part of my retirement, I guess, commemoration, the Tourism Association established a scholarship, and that scholarship, you know, touches on the things that are important to us, small business and tourism, and, you know, a commitment to Prince Edward Island. And I couldn't be more honored that they created that, and once it was created, you know, I became involved to make the size of the award even larger. You know, it's a little humbling to have it named after you, but, you know, whatever works, and you know, it's certainly something that I'm looking forward to continue to help grow. And, you know, whether it's under the name Matthew Jelley or under something else, I think it's important that we continue to provide opportunities. And, you know, the challenge is motivating people to be interested in small business, and
Which leads me to my next question. How important do you think it is to embrace entrepreneurship as far as the economic future of our island is concerned?
Look, if you think the government can employ every islander and that that's our future, then, you know, I'm going to heartily disagree with you. And I think we have to start looking in the exact opposite direction. And small business and entrepreneurship's part of that. But entrepreneurship's broader than just, you know, going out and starting a new business. And it's not just building a 36-acre amusement park. There's entrepreneurs can be involved in government to make it more efficient. And, you know, to me, entrepreneurship is taking ownership in whatever it is you're doing. And so I think we need more entrepreneurs in government and in public service. We need more entrepreneurs in large organizations to help keep them innovating. There's a lot of existing businesses on PEI that need to transition, and there's a huge entrepreneurial opportunity to take them on and innovate and make them more efficient and maybe make some of the decisions that have been put off by an older ownership group that isn't, you know, willing to take some things on later in their career. And then yes, new business is great, innovation is great, but there's a lot of existing businesses and structures that can be made better, and entrepreneurship and the ability of people to own tasks, I think, is key to that. And so when I speak to UPEI, and if I get a chance to speak to the Atlantic Provinces Economic Council or the Entrepreneurship Forum up west or whatever it might be, there's been a lot of invitations, and I try to take as many of them as I can. It's, you know, Google is great, but not everybody can do that from their basement. And, you know, there's only going to be so many of those stories. So concentrate on what you can do, what you are passionate about. And if you can find a career in that, then own your task and be an entrepreneur.
I think you just answered my next question, which was that if there's someone watching right now who's wrestling with the decision to strike out on their own, to become a Prince Edward Island entrepreneur, what's the best advice you could offer them?
Don't do it because you want to be rich quick. You do it because it's something that you care about, something that you're passionate about, and in my case, it's something that you think will make the island better and give back to the community. And I think doing something, you know, being motivated by something other than your own passion, it's never going to work out, because those long hours when you're drizzling, you know, the shower over you, or you're away from your family, or you haven't cashed a paycheck in 6 months because you have to make sure the staff can cash their own, you know, the thoughts of being rich someday aren't going to help you any. The fact that what you're doing is what you want to do and that it's making a difference will. And if you focus on that, I think that you will find that you'll be fulfilled.
Matt, it is a pleasure speaking to you. Continued success to you, sir.
Thanks very much.
All the best.